A word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling choicey adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. We are covering the third and final book in the original Red Rising trilogy titled Morningstar. So you'd better have read the other two stories or have been willing to have sat through all of these episodes without having read a single page up until this point. We're going to tackle everything with the past two books and some predictions going forward. Hey there, this is Cross.
And I am PJ.
And I have to burp. I have to burp. We are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. Think of us as your drunk weekly book club.
If you can't tell from that exchange, we're a little tuned up right now. So this is the second episode of the night for recording for us. And it'll be one of two episodes released simultaneously for you. So hitting the ground running as far as drinking goes. But this is kind of a short episode, hypothetically. So we didn't make additional cocktails, but we did open new beers. So we'll talk about that momentarily.
Yes, if you want to hear about PJ's cocktail and my pour of straight whiskey, you can go to our other episode, which involves Desert Sun by Pierce Brown.
All right, we'll just run through it quick. Crossland had straight bourbon rye. I had a cocktail called The Godfather, which is 2 parts scotch and 1 part amaretto. And that's it. There you go. You're caught up. All right. Crossland, what beer are you drinking now?
So before we talk about that, I'd say that we're going to talk about Morningstar, the third book in the trilogy conclusion to the first half of Red Rising. What beer are you having now, PJ?
It's a beer that I didn't care that much about because I know I'm not going to taste it that well. I think I talked about it
to be
before.
honest.
It's Dirty Little Secret, which is a hazy IPA from Talking Waters. It's fine. It kind of sucks.
Is it like co-sponsored by All American Rejects? Or?
No, that might make it better.
Am I lending too much credit?
No, it'd be a shitty pop punk beer.
Oh, that hurt. That hurt, PJ. For my little pop punk soul.
No, it's fine. It's definitely not Talking Water's best showing, and I don't know what else to say about it. I can't say a ton bad about it, but I don't have any like really strong feelings either way. So it's just kind of, I had another one in my fridge, so that's what I opened.
Sounds fantastic. I am following up what we drank before with a Voodoo Ranger, which is like it's from New Belgium, like brewing, but
they do some really
super.
That Voodoo Ranger line has some really good stuff in it. Actually, their 1980s IPA. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's something along those lines. It's actually really fucking good, especially for their price point.
Exactly right. So I think that they actually make probably one of the best mass-produced beers, period. Like a couple of them. Yeah. That I could definitely lean into anytime, but this is totally just an average. It's a go-round. It's what I keep in my fridge as a spare to follow up the like tasty Wilmington Brewing Company beers that I have all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So before we jump into the episode, I just want to shout out 2 other things. One, we talked about it earlier, the Desert Sun episode that's accompanying this. Listen to it either after or before this. It doesn't really matter. Involves Star Wars if you're interested at all. It's predominantly around episode 4 and things like that.
It's only around episode 4. What do you mean predominantly?
Well, our entire conversation is predominantly around episode 4. I mentioned Vader like once or twice in some prequel trilogy stuff.
Oh, you
I guess it's spoilers at like 20 years.
You mentioned Anakin's flying skills.
Yeah, right.
That's the only thing that's not in episode 4.
Fair. And the book series, or rather the short story collection that we're covering,
I am combative today. Jesus.
Yeah, a little bit. It's okay. It's okay. The short story collection that we are covering is From a Certain Point of View, which is basically just a reflection on A New Hope from the 40-year lens of all of the other characters that were involved inside the story. We read the one written by Pierce Brown, so you might like it. You might enjoy it if you like his writing.
I think you will.
Would highly recommend.
It is very much easy to tell that it's Pierce Brown writing. It's really cool.
So that was the first. The second is, if you missed our episode that we put out on Monday of this week, we wrapped up Golden Sun with Tib from the Sons of Ares Discord. It was a ton of fun. Great time. We cover a lot of ground over the course of 2 hours. It was we covered more than the episode than we did with Bingham, I think, in general.
I think so.
Just kept having you guys talk about Tactus for like 2 hours.
Well,
with Bing.
We really... I think we had more confidence in elaborating beyond the question itself this time.
Yeah.
We kind of got our footing in our format, I guess, since having Bing on. So all of us were more comfortable with just kind of meandering through the conversation and using the question as more of a guide as opposed to the only thing we were talking about. So I think
definitely.
I think the conversation flowed a lot more smoothly, and I know I had a ton of fun.
Yeah, I thought it was a great time all around. Tib has messaged me at least 2 or 3 times saying he was so grateful to show up and that he just had a great time. We are very appreciative that he came on to chat with us. Yeah, it was awesome. We, technically speaking, over the course of recording that episode, we spent like 4 hours with him between the actual recording and like our preamble conversation. So it was awesome.
Then we had a couple hours the day before just to try to make sure we weren't awkward together in conversation. I think that was actually a really good move.
I would agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it allowed us to kind of build a little bit of a rapport instead of me saying like, hey, I'm PJ, what's your name? And being awkward like that, like I tend to be. Mm-hmm. So I got to do that off air instead. So
yeah, totally. It was a good time all around. I think that everyone will really enjoy that episode going back and listening to it either, later or now. There's so many insights that we uncovered between our conversation between the three of us. It was excellent. So moving into that though, for the rest of the show, as detailed on that episode that we just talked about, this episode is going to be fairly short. We only have 2 real notes to go through. We've got 1, which is the summary, which PJ is going to read up next. And then 2, we've got PJ's predictions on who's going to live and who's going to die in Morningstar. So PJ, kick us off with the summary to the next book and then your thoughts.
I have not read this ahead of time like I did in the other books, so I will stumble. And Andrew, this is a note to you, and please leave this in. Do not edit it. I want my stumbles and I want my faults. That is one of the main purposes of starting this podcast. 1, to get me to read more, and 2, to get me to read out loud better. And I think having something real and a little bit unpolished and a little bit embarrassing is beneficial. So with that said, here is the summary. Darrow would have lived in peace, but his enemies brought him war. The gold overlords demanded his obedience, hanged his wife, and enslaved his people. But Darrow is determined to fight back. Risking everything to transform himself and breach gold society, Darrow has battled to survive the cutthroat rivalries that breed society's mightiest warriors, climbed the ranks, and waited patiently to unleash the revolution that will tear the hierarchy apart from within. Finally, the time has come. But devotion to honor and hunger for vengeance run deep on both sides. Darrow and his comrades in arms face powerful enemies without scruple or mercy. Among them are some of Darrow's once considered friends. To win, Darrow will need to inspire those shackled in darkness to break their chains, unmake the world their cruel masters have built, and claim a destiny too long denied and too glorious to surrender.
Beautiful. Well done, Pierce Brown, on the summary. Yeah, any thoughts or predictions off of that can take us from where we ended with Darrow being imprisoned and having a paralytic poison injected into him.
I don't think Roke is going to suddenly be on his side again.
Oh, okay. Any other like immediate thoughts that rush to mind?
No, I don't think that really revealed a lot, and I think that was intentional. I didn't want any sort of glimmer of spoilers in that, and I think he did a good job of that.
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't have let you read it if there was a glimmer of spoilers, because that's my mindset when it comes to spoilers. I would have either edited it down or have rewritten something, but I think that they did a good job of treading around that line very carefully.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I guess we get into our that Darrow didn't die at the end of the other book.
I guess that's fair. It's kind of a spoiler that he's alive.
Yep.
So this episode is predominantly going to be a mega prediction. One mega prediction that we're going to pay off at the end of this book, where we're going to go through, we're going to talk about all the characters. But what we're going to do is I want you to predict who lives and who dies, one name at a time.
Okay.
So it's the rest of this episode. It's just going to be going through those.
Sounds good.
I've got them in order here, roughly of different thoughts. I've separated them by color a little bit.
Okay.
And importance and kind of escalating. So we're going to start with a dearly beloved character, though. I want you to tell me, is Ragnar going to live or die?
He's going to die, but I think he's going to die in a way that inspires a lot of other Obsidians and Stains specifically to carry on his ideals.
Okay. Moving on. Deanna, which is Darrow's mom, dead or alive?
That bitch is dead. She's going to stroke out again.
Oh, no. It's so mean. It's so mean. So mean. All right. Harmony.
Dead.
Just dead?
Just dead.
Who's anything else? Just dead.
Do we know? I don't think it's been revealed what has happened after the Jackal had her imprisoned, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think she made it out of that.
Okay. All right. Dancer.
He's too crippled. He's going to die.
All right. Evie.
Evie will live.
All right.
And I think Darrow will also convert her bring her back into line with what the Sons of Ares originally were, as opposed to the Splinter faction that she was a part of.
Okay. How about Quicksilver, who's only been talked about in subtext?
I think he'll live.
Okay.
I don't know anything about him or her. I don't think it's even revealed what gender Quicksilver is. So I think Quicksilver lives. I'm assuming they get introduced in this book.
Okay. We'll give that a go.
I'm not gonna mention it.
Kieran. Darrow's brother.
I think Kieran lives. I think Kieran I think he becomes more important and maybe even climbs into some sort of, maybe not actually important, but high level ranks with Darrow, just for the sake of being a Red, being Darrow's brother. And I believe he's the Helldiver now. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to have clout over Lambda.
I mean, there are several Helldivers, of course, because there are simultaneous drills running. But yes, he is a Helldiver.
Right. So I think he'll be kind of the main conversationalist between Darrow and the Reds.
Cool. Well, let's move into our majority gold population here. We're going to run through a lot of critical characters from kind of like varying levels of importance, just to kind of mix it up and make it interesting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the golds, of course, the other howlers, meaning kind of the randomly named howlers that exist.
Okay, so the howlers other than Severo?
Yes. Yep.
I think a lot of them die. I think less than half of them survive.
Okay.
I don't know who. It's hard to really guess who. If I were to guess, it'd be just fucking gambling at this point. But I think a lot of them perish, but I don't think all of them do. And I think 50% is a good guessing point. So less than 50% survive.
Okay. Sounds good. Less than 50%. So Moira Grimace.
I think she's alive.
Okay. All right. So one of the Ash Lord's daughters.
She has flown fairly unspoken so far. So I think she'll raise to a little bit of more prominence and will become more important and will survive this book.
Okay. Aja, the other Algrimus.
Dead. She is too evil. I don't know.
Is she evil?
Maybe not evil. She's too much of a threat. Too much of a threat to Darrow. And too entrenched in her stance.
And support to Octavia. How about Lilith?
Dead.
Dead as a doornail?
Sure.
Just no other?
Just dead.
Okay. All right. Daxo, Au Telemanus.
I think Daxo survives. I think he'll become... I think he'll start to take on almost the Roke role. I think he'll be a close confidant of Darrow's.
Okay. Dig that. We'll move on to Cavax.
I think he'll physically be alive, but I think he gets another concussion or something and he's like brain dead or something.
Ooh, unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
We do love him. Shout out to Tib for loving Cavax.
He'll be able to say one word, and that is jelly beans.
Not Sophocles?
Nope. It is jelly beans.
That's so sad, but it's very Bruce Brown, so I get where you're coming from. Speaking of Sophocles, is he going to be alive or dead?
I think he's going to be alive. Is it a he? We don't know.
The fox. Is the fox going to be alive?
The fox is alive, and I think the fox has kids. Fox has children. There's cute little giant fucking mutant fox children running around eating jelly beans.
My secondary question is, do clones of the fox count?
As children?
As like Sophocles even being live or children? Either way.
That's a good question. No. The specific Sophocles that has a taste for jelly beans and a fucking crazy owner, the one and only, is alive.
Sounds reasonable to me. Okay, so we've Cassius. How Bologna? I think
he lives.
Okay,
and I think potentially the blood feud gets dropped a little bit, and I think maybe not in alliance forms, but I think Darrow and Cassius start working together in some respects.
Adrius, how Augustus?
He's too slimy to die.
You think he lives? Okay.
Yep.
The Jackal lives.
The Jackal lives.
Octavia.
Dead. Dead unceremoniously and pretty early in the book, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm wowing at your prediction, not at the way that I know that it pays off. It's interesting.
Totally understood.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Roke.
Dead.
Thoughts on his death?
Darrow's sad about it, but it's also pretty cold-blooded. Darrow probably gives him an opportunity for redemption, and much like the fight between Ragnar and the Gold, he refuses it and just gets cut down immediately.
Okay. Severo.
I think he dies.
Oh, no. Our boy dies. The half red, half gold?
Yep.
Okay.
I think he dies. And I think it's hard on Darrow. And honestly, I think it's hard on Darrow because I think it's a decision of him. Like it's one of Darrow's decisions that kills him.
That's tough. That would definitely be tough.
Yep.
No question. Okay. Mustang.
Dead. I don't think she makes it into Morningstar.
Wow. You know who I forgot to ask about? Victra. Oh, because she's dead as a doornail.
She's dead.
Right? She's dead.
She's dead.
She died in the last book. What am I saying? She got shot in the neck twice.
In the spine.
Forgot.
By your sister.
Like rereading these books, it's one of those things that you kind of forget.
You didn't ask about Antonia,
this character.
Though.
Oh, Antonia. Yeah. Antonia's good to ask before Darrow.
Antonia also too slimy to live. Or too slimy to die. Too slimy to die, like the Jackal.
Oh, so she lives.
She lives.
Okay. Cool. And Darrow.
Darrow lives.
Main character.
I think Darrow
All right.
lives.
This episode may have sounded like a giant spreadsheet that we just ran through for the most part, but also I think it's fascinating to think about as we move forward into the rest of the book. These are predictions that are going to pay off with PJ being very, very, very drunk for one of our wrap-up episodes.
Okay, I would like to...
Or very not drunk, and I will end up very drunk.
I would like to set a wager right now.
Sure.
Because you said very, very drunk.
Well, no. I had to clarify.
Each of these is a half shot.
Half shot?
In the wrap-up episode.
Oh boy, dude. There are so many names here that I think we have to do a quarter.
Quarter. All right, quarter shot. Third.
All right.
Third.
Quarter.
Okay.
I stand by a quarter.
All right, fine. A quarter. Quarter shot.
Yeah, for everyone's sake, especially the guests. And we have good guests booked for the end of this, so we're going to hang out.
Okay,
with
how about this? Half shot, and anytime one of these characters dies, that's when we resolve it.
Maybe that's when we take it. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. We'll do it that way. We'll pay it off that way.
We'll pay it off throughout the series.
This series. Not all at once at the end. Okay. Sounds good. I'm in.
All right.
Cool. So with that, we move into next week. Next week, we're going to be starting Morningstar, the final book in this trilogy. We're going to be reading chapters. Again. You do.
I get to read what fucking happened. This has been like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks,
2.5 weeks,
2.5 weeks. But I read the end of Golden Sun like the day after we recorded.
Yeah, so maybe
it's been like 3 weeks for me.
Yeah. So this next book we're going to be reading for the first episode, chapters 1 through 7, pages 1 to 53. It should be an incredible time. We're going to jump back into the story. It's like PJ said, it's been a bit. I'm very excited to get back into it here with you as we kick off the third book in the first trilogy of the Red Rising Saga.
Yes. So that's where we'll leave you for this week. Please continue to let your friends and family know about us if you think they have any sort of interest in what we do here. Our website, wordsandwhiskey.show, is always being updated with the cocktails that we drink on the show, or a calendar that hypothetically is updated now.
It exists for Morningstar.
Well, that's good. Our social media is at Words Whiskey Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. And we absolutely adore getting any sort of feedback or interaction from fans or from listeners in general. People that hate us. I don't know. We haven't had any of that yet. Haven't had any hate mail. Please send us hate mail.
Kind of tells us we're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. Additionally, if you want to help us reach more viewers without sharing what you listen to in your private podcast life, totally fine. Just give us some sort of review and some sort of rating on whatever podcatcher that you listen to us on. Always helpful there. We live and die by the algorithms on that thing. So
true. With that, like PJ said, please send us an email at wordsandwhiskeyshow@gmail.com. If you have any additional questions to ask, say if you're already a fan of the series and you want to ask PJ something about the end of this book going forward, I would love to pose some questions in that end PJ predictions section from any fans that have any other questions or people who love this book series so much to talk about it. It would be excellent to hear each and every one of your voices on the podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you and can't wait to share our next episode with you next week.